when we're getting into deep.
Alex, thanks for joining me, mate. How you doing?
Thanks, Jack. Yeah, pretty good over here.
Yeah,
In the
great.
morning.
You're in Romania, is that correct?
I'm in Romania now
Ah,
for the next few months or so, a couple months. I'll
fan
be I'll be going to the States after.
fantastic, nice one. I'm pretty excited about this. I feel like this is going to be a really interesting conversation because your line of work is very unique, extremely unique to say the least. So yeah, I've been kind of getting into a lot of these kinds of subjects. I think the telepathy tapes really kind of. I've been interested in a lot of different esoteric things, I guess you'd call them, for a long time. But the telepathy tapes is a really, really fascinating investigation into a lot of this stuff. And I guess we're kind of talking about Psi-Abilities. I'm not 100% familiar with all the terminology, so feel free to jump in and correct any point. But you are you co-founder of Extra-Ordinaries, or so
Yeah. Co-founder
co-founder
and
and trainer?
co-trainer.
Yep, and trainer of Extra-Ordinaries. So maybe you could just tell us a little bit about Extra-Ordinaries, what it is that you guys do, what you're all about, and yeah, maybe just kind of, yeah, the ethos of the organization.
Sure, yeah. Gosh, you know what? This might be the first time I have to. Somebody's asked me to answer that. Uh, so, extraordinaries, we train extraordinary skills and abilities, such as some of the ones that you mentioned, like telepathy, um, telekinesis, blind sight, which is like seeing with your eyes closed or with a mask, a blindfold vision, and other things like in the last training that we did, we managed to do some teleportation as well, teleportation of small objects. Yeah,
Pretty big
yeah,
claims. Pretty big claims.
yeah. Yeah, we have it on video, but the thing is with it doesn't just pop into midair or like out of nothing. So we were teleporting little pennies from a cup in the front of the room to people were teleporting them into their pockets, and we had four of those instances happen, and we had about 30 attendees. So 4 out of 30 got it. That was the first time I ever facilitated something like that. So I was super happy with the success rate, even if it's only like 13% or so. Um, yeah, and we've done extraordinaries. We've done one training so far in Ogden, Utah. This was at the end of October. 30 attendees or so. We've got one more coming up next year. And prior to that, I was doing telekinesis trainings in Melbourne, Australia, where I just found out
Where,
that you are as
yeah, where
well.
I reside. Yep. So you co-founded this with a lady called Dahlia.
Mhm.
Um, and how did you guys connect? And what's her kind of story? How? Yeah.
Yeah, so I met Dahlia last year, I believe it was in January, at a blindside seminar. And she was there as a demonstrator. I was there as a hypnotherapist, a hypnotist coming in to try to increase the percentage of attendees that would be getting their blind sight on and being able to see without their eyes.
Hmm.
So I spoke to the organizer. He wanted to test this thing out, this experiment of seeing if hypnosis would help. I had already been doing it with my telekinesis training, so I found a lot of success on my trainings that people would be able to pick up telekinesis much more quickly and develop much faster. I'm talking like people would get results in 5 days that would take years of solo practice work, or people would just never get to those those things. So I found hypnosis works really well. And I also utilize a number of things like stories and metaphors and altered states to bring people into a place where they can develop and learn skills faster. So I that's what I was coming in with. Dali came in as a demonstrator for Blindside and also as a teacher. And we just became very good friends and became stayed in touch and in contact a lot. And we're extremely close friends now. And her background is she's actually an energy worker. So she's been in a cheese school for I believe it's been like 15 years or something, maybe 20 years. She's learned a lot of stuff on how to move energy and how to do different things, and she meditates a lot. And she, I believe, opened up her kind of ability to do this about a year and a half ago with stuff like Blindside. And yeah, and then she just got a lot better, and she also got really good at training people as well. Like she's an incredible teacher and an incredible trainer as well. And you mentioned the telepathy tapes. That's relevant here as well because her daughter Lidu is was on the telepathy tapes and is probably one of the more or most advanced kids that they found in terms of telepathic abilities, but also being able to spell. So her and her daughter Lidu have been on a number of appearances and have done lots of public demonstrations in front of hundreds, maybe thousands of people now.
Right. So Lidu is she has autism and is nonverbal. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah, that's correct.
And she's one of the people who she can communicate telepathically and through the if people have heard telepathy tapes the method of spelling where they press buttons with letters as a way of communicating. That's she's been able to demonstrate that many times over. Correct.
Yeah, the one I've seen her do most often is actually using a letterboard. So it's like a board, it's transparent so people can see on the other side as well.
Right.
And she moves and she spells out. And her telepathic abilities, like at the training that we did in Ogden, uh, she would come in for about 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and she would answer people's questions directly without them ever asking those things. Or she would tell people about things that there was no way that she could know, or even some things they didn't know yet, and then they were able to confirm later on. So her capacity is incredible. And what's also incredible is so Dahlia's worked a ton with her as well to get better at using the letterboard and also to express herself. So she started to express herself quite a lot, and there's been a few occasions when she started um, answering some of these things as well verbally.
Yeah. Right. Wow. Um, so you kind of mentioned before, like the teleporting stuff, and yeah, a lot of these stuff are pretty big claims, and they're pretty. I even sense it myself. Pretty easy to be like, yeah, I don't know about that, but I saw a podcast with Dahlia, and of course, it's not done in scientific conditions on this podcast. It was just a video podcast on the Danny Jones show, and but it appeared that she was able to see things with fully blindfolded. She was able to demonstrate that. Your Instagram account, I've been having a look through, and there's a lot of pretty interesting videos, pretty strange videos. One there seems to be you seem to have an ability to generate like a little static or electric shocks through your fingers. There's multiple videos of you putting your fingers up to people, and then a little spark will happen. I've zoomed in, could see the spark. I couldn't no wires or anything that I could see. So it's pretty interesting. It's pretty intriguing, and you also do I think do you call it telekinesis or psi? Is that basically moving objects without making any contact? There's lots of videos of those. Again, I can't verify anything because I'm just looking at these videos, but there's a lot of videos that they're pretty interesting, pretty compelling. So I guess how did you have a moment, or did you have a unique upbringing or anything that really drew you to this kind of stuff? Did you ever have a moment that something happened, or you were able to demonstrate to yourself something very extraordinary that steered you down this path?
Yeah, so I did have a bit of a unique upbringing. I was lucky enough when I was a kid that my parents they would go to garage sales and pick up like books. So they would love to purchase books. I don't know if you guys have garage sales over there, but it's
Yeah,
like in
yeah.
Canada.
Mm.
Yeah, so yeah, I grew up in Toronto, Canada. Every weekend they'd go and they'd buy like old used books and stuff. And among some of those books would be like old books on psychic stuff, like telekinesis or like telepathy or ESP, extrasensory perception. Building intuition, all these things. So I got into that stuff like really early on. And I mean, when I say early, I mean like I was reading these things when I was probably like 10, 11,
Mm.
12. And they also picked up a book called Silva Ultramind, which I don't know if you're familiar with
No,
by any chance.
no.
Jose Silva in the 60s or 70s was this researcher, scientist who was exploring like the limits of human consciousness and also what you can do when you bring the brainwave states to an alpha level, which is like alpha level is like a little bit more relaxed, more calm, but the mind is quite awake and has access to many more to resources that we don't normally have in our beta state, which is probably where we are now or thereabouts, which is your usual type of like inner dialogue or
Hmm.
talking. You're kind of active. And this book was very interesting, talked a lot about ESP and psychic stuff. And it just so happened that in Toronto, there was somebody that was holding a training, a workshop over the weekend. And I think I was 12 or so, and I asked my parents if I could go. And so lucky that they actually said yes, because this was expensive and we didn't have good financial means or anything. But they took me on this workshop. And on that workshop, we learned about this stuff. We did things like remote viewing. We did things like healing. We did things, some telepathy exercises. We didn't do any telekinesis, but that was my first exposure to this sort of stuff at the age of 12.
So you did remote viewing? You did that kind of stuff?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You
It
got
was,
results?
yeah, yeah. I got results. When your children have unbelievable success with this kind of thing,
Really?
so yeah, so this sort of thing is, so you're earlier on, you're like some crazy claims about teleportation and telekinesis and all this stuff is crazy, but if and I'm sure a lot of people who listen to this, it's like, yeah, they agree with you, but like it's 2025 right now, and there's already been maybe about two, three, 4 decades of clear research and conclusive evidence in the West
Hmm.
of studies done on this kind of stuff that it is real and proving that it is real. And in the West, and a lot of people that claim, there isn't, they just have never done their own research on it. But also in the West, we're unlucky that our society views it in a skeptical fashion, whereas places like in Russia or China, this stuff has been out in the open for 20, 30, 40, 50 years since the Cold War, because they've been working on that sort of stuff. And even now, you can see, like in India, India's having a massive resurgence or renaissance of this sort of psychic stuff with kids being doing this and going to schools specific to this sort of training. And it's like you have videos of hundreds of these kids doing it. So people are skeptical here, but it's like this is like mainstream in other societies. It's just that in the West we've been it's kind of been made to, be a joke.
Mm.
Because it makes sense though if you think about it. If you have people that are able to remote view, then that can pose like serious national defense concerns. If and
Absolutely.
people have remote viewed in
Same
like
with
military bases.
telepathy. I mean, gets a lot of people paranoid if people can read their
Yeah,
thoughts. Can be
yeah,
used for incredible good, but I think a lot of people get very, I don't know, nervous about that. And like you said, for things like national security, it's if it's all real, it's I mean, for me, I think an indicator that there's something to it is the fact that you had the CIA doing special operations back and probably still now, all on remote viewing. And I've listened to multiple podcasts with people who are in the programs, and they're all very fascinating conversations and interviews, and they claim that they're having extremely good results. It does make you wonder why the CIA or American intelligence would put so much money and effort into those programs if they were garbage.
Yeah, and you even have there's a one at least one very successful public consultancy that did remote viewing for agencies and also corporations. And like you had big companies like Samsung was one that ended up being on the news that they actually hired remote viewers to spy on the competition. So why would you have these kinds of programs, these kinds of companies actually spending money on this sort of on this stuff if it wasn't real?
Yeah. So, back to kind of when you were 12, you were doing things like remote viewing. What were you doing? What were some examples of what you did that kind of changed your mind about all this?
The remote viewing mainly happened at the workshop, at the Silva Ultramar workshop. We did some stuff there. I was remote viewing somebody's house because we were trying to get evidence. We would partner up. We would get evidence if what we were doing was real, if it worked, and if it was successful. I remote viewed family members, and then also did healing. I don't know if that was successful or not. And then I would have done it a bit once I got back with my parents and stuff, but I never stuck to remote viewing too much. I did a little bit. I mean, I was a kid, you know.
Right.
The thing that really got me more was when I was 15 or 16, I saw a video on YouTube back then of somebody doing telekinesis, like moving a psi wheel under a jar. And that was like I saw that and I'm like, I gotta try this. And then I spent like the next, I don't know, 3, 4 months or something doing that.
Right. So that's I've seen lots of videos of that with like a bit of tinfoil on a pin, and people seem to be moving them with their minds or energy. I'm not sure. Again, it's not at all that I don't believe it. Like I'm very aware that I actually really want to believe it, but there are things that you can't see off camera if anyone's blowing or anything like that. And I guess that's kind of part of what's interesting about what you guys do is I think I was reading that your mission is to try and get as many people to actually experience this as possible, and as many just like normal people. So I guess do you guys believe people like yourselves who can do this stuff? Do you believe that this is not a? I mean, is it gifted people that can do this, or can everyone do it, or is it accessible to every single person?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So that's the mission. I didn't get a chance to go to that with Extraordinaries, but that's what we're doing. That's the point of what we're doing is to make this like to normalize this stuff. It's called Extraordinaries with a dash in between the extra and ordinaries. It's a bit of a play on words because it's not like we are extraordinary. It's like just a little bit above ordinary. And that's because everybody has this ability. It's not a gift. Everybody can do this. There hasn't been a single person that I've trained that has not been able to do this, any of these skills. And that's the other thing with so with my Instagram, the stuff that we're posting on it, it's not stuff of me doing it. It's stuff of other people doing these things. Like those are all people that are on the trainings that are having success and are doing it. It'd be crazy to have a bunch of people set them up, and have everybody fake some stuff to,
It looks very organic, It's just in the room. It looks like everyone's having genuine reactions, having really happy, surprised. People of all ages. It does look like a very organic scene that from these videos. Doesn't look like a big dramatized setup thing. So yeah, it's really fascinating. It's extremely intriguing. What are some of the what are the lists of abilities that you guys train, can experience, or are trying to work with?
So they kind of fall into, let's say, three big categories. Um, One is telekinesis, which is just like moving matter with your mind. One is blind sight, which is seeing with your eyes closed. And the other one is telepathy, which is like mind-to-mind communication. But I would recommend not thinking of these things in these kinds of, not thinking too like categorical about these things because it can really limit what's possible. Because these things are not, they're not like superpowers like you see in X-Men where somebody is able to move, I don't know, metal things but can't move other things, or somebody's able to, like it's not clear cut. So with telekinesis, for example, there's videos of us sticking things to walls, pennies, papers, plastic bags, chip bags, all sorts of stuff to walls. Like now people are practicing and they're sticking like cutlery to the walls. They're sticking like little Lego pieces to walls. So random things. There's also videos of people like magnetizing things, like magnetizing um, cutlery, needles, all sorts of stuff, like affecting matter. So that all might be considered, telekinesis. And I'm using quotations because it's not really like we need to free our minds of these sorts of constraints. It's just matter manipulation, like manipulating reality in any way you want. The teleportation might be considered some sort of a thing as well, but that's what are you doing? You're just kind of manipulating matter. Then the blind side, in the blind side category, where it's like you see without your eyes. Well, people can see without their eyes in front of them, right? But then if you just think of it that way, then you're constraining yourself and you're limiting yourself to the possibility that you can also see right above you and also right behind you and below you. And you can do that. So it doesn't have to be only where your eyes would be able to see. It can be anywhere in any direction. And take that a step further. Um, we had three blind people on our training. Sean, Justin, and John. One was blind from birth. I believe that was John. Justin was blind like from 10 years ago or something. And then Sean was blind from like 3 or 4 years of age and he has prosthetic eyes. All three of them started being able to see. They're able to read things. But the cool thing is they were able to do it underneath objects, like underneath tables, through walls. They're able to see through things. So if we have it in our mind, this constraint of blindsight is just seeing without your eyes and it's like seeing in front of you, then we wouldn't have this other option of being able to see behind you or through things or remote viewing. Remote viewing is really just another form of blindsight. You're just seeing at a distance somewhere else. So what I would recommend for you, and this is what I talk about in the training, is we need to really like open up all of these beliefs and eliminate any constraints we have and just start to look at things as anything is possible because it seems like anything is possible. Whatever you imagine, it seems to be possible.
So, I mean, the implications are pretty massive. So, I mean, like, what does it all mean? What is the function of what's happening here in your opinion? Well, let's just stick with blind sight for example. What is the implication there? Is the implication that our souls are leaving our body and seeing outside? Is it energy? Is it information? Is it what do you guys believe is actually going on? How is this possible?
So I don't like to set any sort of frameworks or models for people, especially in the training environment, because I find those kinds of things can set constraints or limitations on what people can do and how they can make sense of something. Because one thing I've observed is it really comes down to your brain being able to make something make sense and how it believes something. That's how something is gonna happen and is gonna interact. So, for example, if you don't think it's possible to see behind you, that's not going to happen for you. So you have to break that belief somehow. And something like that we'll do in like with unique or smart ways of training where we might trick someone into seeing something and they end up seeing it behind them when they think it's actually in front of them. And then when they realize, oh crap, that was behind them, then that ability opens up for them. Um, so regarding your question, I want to be careful how I say or what I say because this is my personal opinion.
Hmm.
And I don't know, I don't make any claim of knowing how this works, but I've made observations. Distance does not matter. So no distance does not matter in any way, shape, or form in terms of blind sight. You can see anywhere across the world. Time also doesn't seem to make a difference. You can see across time, and you can also see in two perspectives at once. So, for example, in front of you and behind you. Um, so, from what I know that's out there and from the stuff that I've read, the closest thing that seems to kind of make sense with a model like this is sort of that we're tapping into some sort of an informational field, or that we're just tapping it into information, and we have our brain that's translating things into senses, like visual senses, to be able to make sense of the information that we're getting. Because if it wasn't just informational, then you'd think space would make a difference or time would make a difference. But since those don't seem to make a difference, it would seem to be information. But that's just my best guess.
So, I mean, the only I've mentioned this on a few podcasts now, but there's this guy called Thomas Campbell that he really talks about.
Exactly.
Yeah, simulation theory, and it's really recommend people checking out. He's been on a few different podcasts, Joe Rogan, Danny Jones, I'm sure others, but he outlines it all really in a really interesting, very easy to digest way. And yeah, he basically proposes that yeah, we're in a simulation, not the way that I initially thought, like some higher beings making it, but more like a higher consciousness is just sorting out everything and creating an interface. Part of that information needs an interface, just like how we went from computers of just ones and zeros to actually creating, windows so we can actually move around. But he kind of frames it as like a source consciousness or a higher consciousness
LCS, I think he calls it.
right. So consciousness, I guess he's proposing is a fundamental ingredient of the universe itself. It's not just space and time and matter. It's almost like that thing when they say if a tree falls down in the woods and no one's around to hear it, does it make a sound? That I think that thing suggests that there needs a witness for anything to kind of exist. That kind of makes sense to me. I've played around with those ideas. I mean, a lot of people would call that God. A lot of people would call that a higher intelligence. You can kind of use whatever word you want. So yeah, I mean, you nodded with agreement that this all kind of locks into, I guess, an alternative worldview than we've been taught through science and things. That's a framework that resonates with you a lot.
Yeah, massively. I've watched a lot of his stuff. I've partially read his book, My Big Toe, uh, Theory of Everything.
Yep.
And yeah, his framework, his model, I think is for me resonates and fits the bill with things. Um, so for me, that I use that to make sense of things, and I also use Rupert Sheldrake's morphogenetic field theory to make sense of things because that seems to track pretty well with what we're doing now. Also, if you're familiar with that.
I'm familiar with him, but I'm not familiar with that theory. What is it?
So the morphogenetic field, it's the idea that um, consciousnesses, species, humans, other species as well, there seems to be some sort of a field of memory, of information of what happens.
Like the Akashic records, I think. Is that kind of?
Sort of like that, yeah. The way um, the way, so he starts off with basic observations that have been found, like the hundredth monkey effect. So, island of monkeys, isolated, they adopt a new behavior. I can't remember what it was. It might have been washing fruits or something like that. And then they found that on another island, separate, isolated, the monkeys started doing that as well. But this has then been expanded into um, very scrutinized experiments where, for example, they would have rats run through a maze, get them to learn the maze, and then they would check if their offspring would be able to do that maze quicker or not. And lo and behold, they would be able to do it quicker. But they also found that other rats that were not part of the same genetic makeup would also be able to do that maze quicker. And then they ran tests where they would do it in, for example, in America, in a lab in America, they would get the scores down in terms of how fast they'd be able to finish the maze. And then another lab would pick up the study somewhere else in the world. And those rats in that other lab would average out at the time that was last left in the one in America. And then those scores would go down, or like the time elapsed would go
Mm.
down.
Mm.
And then that would continue. But they would also find this, for example, with um, when new crystallized formations would be created, so ones that haven't been made before, um, different kind of metrics that they would record would have a very, very high variability at the beginning when they would be measured. And over time, as these new crystal formations would be created more and more, these these measurements would start to narrow down in terms of the accuracy of the reading. So at first it would be a huge variability, and then over time it would start
Hmm.
to be more consistent. So this flows very well with Tom's idea of a simulation theory, because if you consider this reality is being rendered as it's being experienced, as it's being lived, then a new crystal formation doesn't have any sort of measurement yet. It's um it's a bottom up rendering where there's a probability curve. Who knows how it's going to happen? It falls somewhere maybe at a 30 out of 0 to 100. Next time it'll fall maybe at 60. Then another time it'll fall under 40. Another time it'll fall at 50. And over time, it creates an average. Same with the consciousness field of kind of memory or whatever you want to call it, morphogenetic field. Similarly, it somehow goes into the system now where this information exists, where it's becoming part of consciousness or becoming part of these that species, if in the case of rats or
Mm.
monkeys.
So it's almost like by creating things, making things possible that didn't seem to be possible. That just becomes a logged thing now, and everyone can start almost experiencing that or something. I mean, one,
Yeah, so if I can interject,
yeah.
this is what we want to do with this, the 4 minute mile. We're trying to get as many people to experience these things as possible to make this standard across for everyone. The more people experience this, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of people, then this will be the baseline for everyone. There won't be any more, everybody will be at that level. And this is what we want to do with these trainings.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, that's yeah. How do you how do you train something like I'll just stick with blind sight just for I mean or answer it however you want really. But like how do you train this with just regular people who have no ability or haven't, because I've believe me, like I've been so interested in these subjects for so many years, and I've tried things and I've had a 0% success rate. Nonetheless, fascinating. I'm very fascinated to see what people can do, and would love some proof for myself. So how do you teach these things?
So, my background helps with the teaching of it. Way back when my background was in finance, and I was very much a quant person, so good with statistics and stuff. So I was always looking at, repeatableness, trying to had a bit more of a like an experimenter kind of mindset with these things. Um, a few years ago, a number of years ago, I did an apprenticeship in hypnosis and hypnotherapy. and because I was interested in the mind and what the mind's capable of, and you can do some crazy things with hypnosis. And then following that, I did an apprenticeship in NLP and how to train people and coach and develop people. This
What's
is when I
NLP? Sorry,
neuro-linguistic programming.
neuro linguistic programming. Right.
At its absolute base, NLP is about modeling and modeling skills, modeling expertise. So, Jack, you're an extremely talented artist. A good Nelper would be able to go to you and would be able to kind of map out the strategy that you use and find out like what it is that makes Jack's uniqueness and expertise, Jack. Like how do you do your thing? And would be able to extract some of that stuff so that they would then be able to, at least in part, recreate some of that expertise and artistry. It probably works not as well. It'll take much more finesse to work for things like arts, but it can be done for that as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
So my learning, and I was lucky enough to find some incredible trainers and mentors. They're my mentors. That has aided me in being able to train people with this, because on the trainings, I I'll say a few stories, I'll say some metaphors. These things will help open people up to what's possible into these experiences. I'll give people certain frames. I'll take people through certain exercises, some rudimentary ones, some basic ones. Those things are setting people up to then be able to pick the skills up more quickly as well. And then we do some altered states also, and I help people get into a modeling state. A modeling state is so if you can imagine when you were a kid, right? When we were all kids, we all accessed a modeling state really easily. And that's modeling state is a state where you're able to take in information and learn a skill just by watching, which
Hmm.
is completely natural for us. Like all of us have this inbuilt innately. Science would call it mirror neurons. So neurons are activating when you're seeing somebody do something. That may or may not be the thing. It might be other things as well. But we have that in us. It's only when we started getting into school and academia and stuff that we started to consciously try to make sense of things and understand things so that we stop picking things up unconsciously.
Hmm.
But you can still go into that modeling state really easily if somebody paces you and takes you into that. So I utilize that in the trainings, and then we start doing stuff. Dahlia demonstrates, I demonstrate, we have other people, alumni that are demonstrating. And when you see somebody doing this thing, like moving an object or seeing with their blindfold on, you just immediately start picking it up yourself and start being able to do it.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah, so I guess those barriers of what's possible are kind of naturally breaking down by witnessing. But so when you mention getting like working in altered states or anything, is this done through breath work? Is that kind of stuff a big part of prepping people to alter their state or get them into a state of working with these kinds of things?
No, I just put my hypnosis skills to work.
So
I
a lot of
calm
it's
people
done,
down.
yeah, done through hypnosis, like with a big
Yeah.
group of people. Tell me a bit more about hypnosis. I've listened to another podcast recently, which is fascinating, and it was kind of talking about past life regression and stuff through hypnosis. Another subject that I was used to always think, yeah, sure. But becoming a lot more open to these things because why not? It's exciting subjects, and if there's results, there's results. So tell me about the function of hypnosis, what you're doing, and yeah, what's actually going on with people and how they're interacting with their surroundings or reality.
Yeah, so with in terms of what I do with on the trainings, because there's hypnosis that I do on the trainings and hypnosis that I might do with a client or when I used to do more coaching with people. Um, That one is different. That's more of a hypnotherapy where you take them into a deeper state of mind and you're helping them change something or improve something or develop something. Here, what we're doing in the training is it's a very light trance to get people to that alpha level of brainwave that I mentioned that they would do
Mm.
with Silva Ultramind system. So hypnosis is great for that because you count somebody down or you do any other sort of simple induction. You don't take it too, I don't want to take it too far either. It's just a light trance to allow people's brains to just relax more, be more comfortable, and enter that state of alpha. Because, for example, I mentioned that kids pick up these skills really, really easily and really quickly. Surprise, surprise, most of the time, most of kids' time they spend in alpha, not beta. They only start really getting into beta around 14, 15, 16, I think, and it becomes more like dominant. But before that, a lot of their time is spent in alpha. And when they're really, really young, it's in theta. So there's something to do with that brain state of alpha that helps us be able to do these things. So I do some relaxation. I might take it a little bit deeper at times to give some suggestions for accelerated learning, for developing more quickly, for healing anything, correcting any sort of imbalances that they might have. I'll just take that opportunity to do that anyway because they're there and it's always beneficial for the system.
Are there ways we can kind of guide ourselves into different brainwave states like alpha or so? What? So we're basically on beta. Alpha is a slightly more relaxed. What stages do we go through during sleep?
You basically go from beta down to beta to alpha, then to theta, and then theta is kind of where you're hypnagogic, if you know, and maybe some like more of a dream kind of state.
Right.
Delta is when you're basically not remembering anything and you're not really, your consciousness isn't really online.
Right, right. And so these states can be achieved while we're awake as well through hypnosis?
Yeah, absolutely. And something to keep in mind is like the brain isn't all one state. Like there'll be regions that will be going in different like states, and this is more like kind of a generalization, a pretty big generalization.
And
But yes, consciously and while you're awake, you can go to these kinds of states.
so, what can be achieved in alpha or theta states? What is the function of taking someone to that state, and where can that lead someone?
So if you take somebody to alpha state, they become more relaxed, more calm, and um, things might feel a little bit clearer. It might feel like you have more clarity. You might see things with a little bit more clarity. And generally that seems to be because the inner dialogue really slows down. Theta, getting somebody in theta with their eyes open is pretty difficult, I'd say. But in theta, you become really, really internalized. So there isn't much paying attention to any sort of external stimulus. Things are slowed down significantly, and your usual like conscious processing isn't really there anymore. We actually had um, uh, a scientist, a neuroscientist guy, Jeff Tarrant. He's been on a number of podcasts as well. He was on our training on the last one, and put his he hooked us up to his machines, and he checked what was happening in the brain with different kind of skills when people were doing different things. And it was interesting that, for example, people that were doing blind sight, um, even for Sean, who is blind, his is it occipital lobe, the ones that were in charge of like visual, those were being lit up when he was doing mind sight, and there'd be no reason for those to be lit up because he doesn't see.
Right.
So that's interesting. Dali, I believe she showed interesting signs of like having her alpha waves drastically increase, I think, when she was doing mindsight. So there's different things that are happening. But also it's important not to get too stuck on these brain states because ultimately you're doing any of these skills in normal day to day. It's just probably it's a good gateway into being able to start doing them. And once you got them going, you just start doing them in your normal day to day.
So how do these brain states relate to something like telekinesis? Something like moving a very light object like a piece of foil on a pin or a pencil that's like so I saw one that you were doing it this long object on some kind of I'm not sure but you were moving it quite confidently. um, what's happening? How is matter being manipulated? Is there a field between your hand and the object? Is it what's make it make
Jack, I
sense?
would so I would love to tell you this is something that I talk about in my training when I introduced TK and stuff, and I explain to people like, look, I don't know how this happens. I don't really have a framework, but what I can say is use whatever works for you. It seems like whatever whatever you can make up, whatever sense you make of it is, and that makes sense to you, use that to get it to start working.
Hmm.
That's the first part. Consider it almost like scaffolding, because you want to get things working and start to see this and break your beliefs that this is not possible. But afterwards, you want to take that off. You want to take the scaffolding off, because from what I found, anything is actually possible. There aren't limitations. And any sort of framework of how this works is just going to put limitations. Because if you start thinking there's an energy field, and I have had people that are like energy workers come in and they try to use their energy field to make it happen. What ends up happening is they can do it at when they're up close, but they can't do it at a distance because they're too far away and their energy field can't reach it. But it doesn't make any difference on in terms of like distance. This makes no difference on that on this. It's just something of the mind. People that don't have that sort of thing, there's other people that think that energy is coming from their eyes, you know? So if they can do it at a distance, but if their eyes are closed, they can't do it. But I just posted a video of Sean, the guy that's blind, doing moving something and spinning an eagle wheel. And he's blind, so it's clearly has nothing to do with the eyes.
Hmm. Hmm.
He
Right.
has prosthetic eyes, so it doesn't do anything with the eyes. So I'm very reluctant to give you a framework for this because it's I
It
think it would just limit and create constraints
can get in the way.
unless yeah, unless we take on Tom Campbell's kind of theory again, which I like. And if everything is information, then just assume that you're just changing the information, how something is represented. That's it.
So do you go in if you or some of the other people in your courses are doing telekinesis, moving an object? What kind of a state do you go into? What mentally where do you go? How do you change your mind or the situation or whatever? How do you get into that zone, into that flow?
Me personally, or others that are on the training.
Yeah, you personally or anyone.
I'm like, it's not differentiated from my normal state now because I've
Mm,
done it so much. Like um, last year when I started training telekinesis, I was training 2 hours a day, sometimes 3 hours a day, nonstop. Like I was just constantly training, and it just became a thing. So it's not um, for me, it's not a special state. I'm just always in that state. I can just do it. There's no, there is. Don't be in a state of doubt.
mm.
That doesn't help. Being in a state of doubt doesn't help. Being in a state of like um, concerned if you can do it or not, that doesn't help. Performance anxiety doesn't help. Anything like that, that stuff doesn't help. Um, just be in a state of like a flow or normal state, anything. Um, and that's another thing. Since I mentioned that, I want to provide to people if anybody wants to try this. This should not be stressful or effortful. It doesn't take any stress or effort. There's people that have this limiting belief that they can only do a certain amount of time, and it's like it hurts. especially with Stranger Things now. Have you seen Stranger Things?
I saw the first few seasons, maybe up to season three, I think. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So you see, like, Elle's doing some stuff,
Mm,
Eleven's doing stuff, and she's like, she gets a nosebleed, and she's like straining really hard, and like, like no, like that doesn't need to happen.
mm,
Like,
mm.
none of me or my students, people that I've trained, it doesn't happen to them. Some people at the beginning might have that idea, and then I need to like talk to them. I might need to do some work with them and get that belief out of there.
Mm.
Because there's no headaches, there's no straining. It's really simple, it's really easy. If anything, I think straining and headaches like gets in the way.
Right, right.
And there's people on Instagram like that have or on videos where they're efforting and stuff, and I'm like, that's probably fake, to be
Mm.
honest.
Yep, yep. Is there anything you can do to any kind of demonstration that you could do right now? Is there any?
I don't have any of my oh, hold on. Got this little eagly wheel thing.
Hmm.
It's basically
Oh yeah, it's almost like a compass kind of thing. It's like a wheel that's very light
yeah,
and very easy to wobble and rotating.
yeah, exactly.
Yep. Uh huh.
And it's just on a little thing there.
Hmm. Is that metal?
Yeah, it's metal.
Hmm.
Now, the biggest issue is actually not moving it accidentally, so I'm just trying not to look at it to let
Hmm.
it settle. This is the first exercise that I do with people on the training. I put the side wheel, I set it up, and I have everybody watch it, and I say, okay, look at the side wheel now, and it's usually still or just like barely moving. And I'm
Hmm.
like, don't nobody try to move it because it's easy to move. Like watch now and record it so that you forever remember this moment. This is the first and last time you'll ever see it's this still in this training. And we all watch it and people spend like a little bit of time to see. And let's see, hopefully the performance anxiety factor that I was talking about earlier doesn't hit.
Starting to move slightly.
A little bit, yeah. Hold on a sec, let's try the other one. So for anybody else that wants to try this and they're doing a side wheel, something that's always helpful is to just try something different. If something isn't working for a bit of time, try something different. Like sometime one hand might be a bit better than another one. Um, you can also like use your fingers to like just something that makes sense for you, whatever your mind is able to make sense of at the time. Well, this ain't great. It's showing me up. So this is also why I'll explain this. This is why Dahlia is incredible at what she does because she demonstrates this kind of stuff in front of hundreds of people.
Hmm. Slightly moving.
Yeah, but this is crap compared to what it usually does.
Oh, yep. Getting some movement.
Still pretty crap.
Going back and forward. There we go.
What sometimes helps is if I'm like paying attention to something else, because then I've set the intention to to move it, and then I can just get in the flow of that while part of my conscious mind, the part that does the verbalizing, is focused on something else, because that's the one that's usually the one that doesn't, um, let's say, the one that's talking about yourself or talking about what's going on. So, for example, what might be happening to me is I'll be thinking, okay, well, I'm on a podcast now. Somebody's asked me to do a demonstration. What's going on? How's it going to work? Blah, blah, blah. That's going on in the background. That's creating some doubt, and that's not helping me. But if you're talking, for example, or if you're listening to someone, then that part is able to be more subdued,
Mm.
and that isn't happening, you know? So a lot of it has to do with like just expectation and belief.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's wobbling now,
Yeah.
going back and forth, left and right. So for the listeners, I'll have this on YouTube as well, if you want to see. Very subtle movements. But basically what we're seeing is a little disc very,
Barely
very subtly going, rotating left and right. Quite subtle though.
Yeah, I'll keep this here on the desk
Mm-hmm.
and I'll see if things start to change as we talk, and then if
Sure. Well,
anything else.
I mean, yeah. Thanks for doing the demonstration. So, I mean,
So for example,
oh wow, okay, it's moving quite a lot now.
and then it just stopped.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, it's yeah,
Now it's dead
it's
still.
quite still there.
It was rotating
Yeah,
quite.
yeah.
So, what are the implications that with all of this stuff? You know, like it is definitely um, a completely different model of reality. I mean, so I've spoken about this in the past and things with our current model of, I guess, materialist science. There are still huge gaping holes that are not being answered. You know, is there a God? Is there life after death? Do we have a soul? There's big. I'd say the biggest question: is there a God? The biggest questions are completely unanswered in our current framework, our current model, or the mainstream model. A lot of that is kind of changing with a lot of credible scientists that are working with ideas such as simulation theory or even like quantum mechanics and things. There are huge changes in our understanding of what's going on. But it's also quite fascinating because a lot of this stuff, the mystics and a lot of ancient religions have been kind of saying this stuff for a long time. How did they find out? How did they know? It just seems like things are changing for us because Western science or maybe more materialistic science is kind of catching up or familiarizing these kinds of ideas. So yeah, I mean, what are the implications? Like, what even are we? I mean, how has all this work changed your model of reality and your relationship with reality?
That's a big question. It's made me really start to consider how how connected everything is and how connected I am to everything else. And it's really made me just be much, much more aware of how I affect my reality and how I affect other people's reality. Because all of these things seem to suggest that we are constantly creating what's going on and what's happening in our world. Um, so people will ask me, okay, so you can move some stuff with your mind, cool. Um, how does that help? How does that help? Or what can I use that to? Or like how is that practical? Um, if you consider complex systems, like nonlinear dynamics, things like weather patterns or weather prediction or economics, any sort of system that is a chaos system that has tons and tons of variables, you take the tiniest little variable and you move it a seemingly insignificant amount, everything will seem to stay on track for the first little bit of time, but very quickly it turns into a completely different result than you expected, exponentially different.
Hmm.
So the implications of being able to move matter and like being able to like affect something is that something like this, you're moving and it's like kind of big, kind of not. But if you're able to move something super small somewhere else at a distance, right? And then you have enough time that goes by, maybe weeks, months, then that tiny movement, that little manipulation of whatever happened can turn into a huge, huge result with given enough time. Um,
Yeah, like a ship sailing. If you change it 1 degree, it doesn't seem like much, but you'll end up in a completely different part of the world if you just keep going on that trajectory. Um, Totally.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So what would be the implications of us all waking up to our abilities? What where could that take us, do you think?
So
Collectively, like humanity.
yeah, yeah, that's that's a really good question because that's kind of what's driving what we're doing now. Um, Prior to the first training that we did, Lidu, Dahlia's daughter, she told Dahlia and I that we should really include some telepathy exercises in the training. Initially, we were just going to do telekinesis and blindsight because telekinesis is like kind of my specialty, blindsight's her specialty, and we're just going to do it together. But her daughter Lidu was saying teach telepathy, what she calls as the teachers, which are like entities that are guiding us and helping us,
Mm.
everyone,
Mm-hmm.
really want us to do telepathy. And for me, telepathy is why we're doing this. And to answer your question, I believe the bigger reason with the bigger thing is that with telepathy comes more understanding between people, more understanding, more empathy, more connection, more love. So much in our communication gets is misunderstood,
Mm.
and so many arguments happen, or so many disagreements happen because somebody is not able to communicate properly what they mean, and the love that we genuinely have for each other isn't normally communicated. Like between our partners, for example, with our partner or with our kids or our parents, we like the real intent there is that we love them and we want the best, but somehow we still get into arguments and discussions with them. But
Mm.
imagine that doesn't happen anymore because that love is always communicated, or with friends, that's always communicated. So I believe, and I'm sure Dolly is on the same page with me on this, is that something like telepathy is going to create connection among all of us and connection across the entire world. And that will raise us to take us to a better tomorrow,
Mm.
uh, a kinder tomorrow, a better place for everyone.
Mm. Just for the listeners, the wheel was rotating quite fast while Alex was speaking just earlier. But yeah, so have you had any direct experience with telepathy?
Yeah, so we've been, I know this sounds crazy, but Lidu has been teaching both Dahlia and I in our dreams
Mm-hmm.
um,
So she comes
techniques.
to you in your dreams, really?
Yeah,
Wow,
yeah. So
that's pretty
I
wild.
wasn't sure if it's actually her, but Dahlia went over to her on the day after it happened. She asked, do you have anything to tell Alex? And she responded something like, yeah, tell him that stuff was I did visit him in his dreams and use the stuff that you were learning in your dreams to teach others telepathy. So that's without any prompt. So there wasn't any sort of you know, because I could, of course, just dream it myself, maybe, but no, it
Yep.
seems she did actually. And we've tried different like little exercises that she taught us. We had some pretty good success with them, like really good, way out of probability. And we're practicing that stuff. And on the next training, we want to in Sedona, we want to include all of that.
You mentioned entities and things. Have you guys had any experience with entities that don't have bodies or anything? Things that are out, the wheel is rotating quite a lot. Yeah, have you had any experience with entities or guides or anything like that?
Yeah. So I'm not the best person to for this kind of stuff. I'm
Hmm.
a little bit more um I'm actually trying to contact. I'm in the process of trying to make contact. And personally it's difficult um for me, but uh Dahlia has had and especially because she does a lot of energy work stuff, she's quite sensitive to that. Lidu has told her that there's entities around us all the time. Like it's basically a whole other, like it's just another world, and they're always there, and they're all there all the time. And a lot of people that come to our trainings have had. But something that interesting that did happen to me um, on the training, and this isn't, I've never had this happen before. So I think it was the second last day. I started to feel really sick, got really like feverish when I was in class. It was just before we were taking lunch. I was feeling like really, really dizzy. I couldn't think. Um, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go outside and like get some fresh air. And when I lay down on the grass, and I've never seen this, I've never seen anything like this, especially in broad daylight. Like in the sky, just above me, there was like this. Have you heard of Tic Tacs?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Hey, there was a Tic Tac that flew by.
Really?
So you said, oh yeah, why, oh yeah? Did you have some crazy
Oh,
experiences?
no, I'm just very, very into the UFO subject. Very into it. But I mean, yeah, I've had a kind of similar experience. But anyway, yeah, continue with it was more just a light, a weird like looked like a looked like a light, like a star kind of thing.
At nighttime.
In it was daytime.
Daytime. Oh,
It was
wow. Okay.
just after sunset, and but the light, it was still light. You know, it hadn't gone dim yet, so the light was fading, but it was definitely light. It was definitely not evening yet. It's just going into evening, but yeah, it was a weird circumstances. Kind of were odd. Anyway, but yeah, continue with
Cool.
yours.
Um, yeah, yeah. So
How
just
close
saw
was
the
it?
Tic Tac. Sorry?
How close was it? Was it just
I can't tell because it was
so
like
high?
you could see it looked about that big on the sky.
Mm, yep.
I could clearly see the outline of it. There was no wings, there was nothing on it. It was white, and it
Mm,
was just like moving down. Um, and then like I don't know, once it got to a certain point, then at one point it just disappeared completely.
mm,
But not because it got too small, it just kind of disappeared. And my sickness or the feverishness continued for like I don't know another 2 hours. But following that, I had another UFO. I got sick again like 2 days later or something. And I'm like, what's going on? And I'm like, oh my God, this feels kind of similar to that time. And like I'm looking up and I'm like, is there going to be another one? And then I see another one. And then for the next week, and I just so happened to be driving from Ogden to Sedona. And Sedona is known for like it's a UFO hotspot. And I see another like three in broad daylight. What I think are UFOs, UAPs, whatever you want to call them. It could have just been like, who knows? But
yeah, I mean,
weird.
it's hard to ever get answers, but I find a lot of these stuff are yeah, you know, they some weird things happen, and a lot of the time when they happen, their circumstances are kind of odd, or there's an urge to look up, or you know, I mean, the UFO subject I find extremely fascinating. I've always been into it my whole life. At the moment, I'm finding a lot of the narratives that are coming out. At first, I found them extremely fascinating with a lot of these government officials talking, but part of me now, I'm just like, "Oh, I don't know whether these people are trustworthy. Maybe they're just trying to curate the narrative." But I actually think the psi aspect, the psychological aspect with people seeing orbs or UFOs, I'm actually finding that a bit more interesting these days. And there does seem to be big, particularly with the kind of the lights, like the orbs or whatever we want to call them. There seems to be a kind of psychological aspect, and that seems to be really, I don't know, the where things can be demonstrated. There's a guy called Chris Bledsoe. He
Hmm.
Christopher Bledsoe. He uploads videos every week of him summoning these orbs. Pretty hard thing to fake. I mean, so consistently. Who knows?
We
But
might have him on one of our trainings.
oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, yeah. Dahlia's good friends with him.
Really? Wow. Well,
Yeah.
what do you think's going on with the obviously all speculative. It's hard to get any answers, but what do you think's going on with the UFO phenomenon and the these things kind of consistent in your world in the realm of people doing extraordinary abilities?
So, this wasn't ever a thing for me until the last training, and we actually asked Lido at one of the demonstrations, like, is this stuff? We asked if
Mm.
we have anything to do with Atlas, because it just so happened that we held our training right before Atlas,
Three
and
eye
she said,
atlas, the object moving.
yes,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yep.
yeah, and she said something like, what we're doing is of interest to Atlas and what's happening over there. And she also said that we've garnered, how did she say? We've garnered a lot of attention from other entities or other beings with what we're doing. So I don't know. I think there's different kinds as well. I don't think there's like just, I think there might be, physical, maybe UAPs crafts. I think like orbs might be like entities. I don't know. I think there's different kinds, and I think there's a huge, vast array of different types of. It's silly to think that we're the only ones. Like, hopefully nobody thinks that anymore because
Mm.
we're so far beyond that. Even if you just have a very religious context, we aren't the only entities. There's other entities as well.
Mm.
At the very least, angels, right? And
It is interesting you mentioned that, and kind of similar to what you say about you don't like providing too much of a framework because it can limit what you see as possible. But I see that also with the UFO subject. You take Christopher Bledsoe. His framework is much more of a religious framework, and I think I've heard him say he believes they're angels or things like that. His whole origin story is very like it's kind of biblical in a sense.
yeah,
It's a completely different framework of, and maybe he's right, or maybe it's taking that form because that's his framework. Hard to say. A lot of these things just end up giving us way more questions than any answers. Um, but
I I have something, a suspicion on that
mm,
matter.
mm,
Um, so in my experience with training any sort of extrasensory perception, like I mean, being able to see remotely or feel remotely or whatever, what's happening is clear, right? It's somehow you are getting data about something or information about something, and some part of you needs to translate that data into a sense. And you can translate it into visual, kinesthetic, smell, gustatory, audio. Um, so there's some sort of like there's a requirement for a translation to happen, for us to make sense of stuff. I think if we apply that same sort of rationale, that's the same sort of process to I don't know, entities or energetic beings, or I don't know what it is, I don't know what they are, but some other thing that we can't normally see, then in that translation process, it would make sense that we would translate it into something that fits our belief system. Just like with telekinesis, like if you use your existing belief system to make the thing work. So if I think, like kind of what you alluded to, I think it's based on the filters that we have in our belief system, and that's how we make sense of it.
But we kind of need frameworks, don't we? I mean, it's kind of hard to avoid creating frameworks for ourselves to make sense of anything.
Yeah, yeah. This is why I start off people with, I give them the scaffolding of like, okay, use whatever makes sense for you at the beginning,
Right.
but then try to remove the framework so that you're like slowly expanding
Just like
yourself.
keep opening up, keep opening up.
Yeah,
Yep, yep.
so that you're not limiting yourself to what it actually might be.
Back to the Three Eye Atlas thing. Did Lidu say anything more? Did she what does she think it was?
Um, so I believe Dahlia asked her a couple times about it, and each time she had a very negative reaction when she tried to see what's going on. Now I don't know what that necessarily means. I don't know if
Okay.
it's something negative. I don't know if it's being guarded. I don't know.
Hmm.
But we didn't get any other information.
So Lidu is in contact with other things
Yeah,
frequently.
all the time. Yeah.
Does she? Is there a framework that we could kind of understand that through? Are they just? Are we just? What's the physical world? What like are these guardians? Are they?
I
Is this all just a play, and they're all just like there's an like what is it? What is reality, Alex?
I can tell you the words that she uses, but take into consideration that she has grown up in a Catholic family.
Mm-hmm.
So she calls some of these she calls I believe she calls angels, that there's angels around. Uh, but she refers to a lot of the entities that are helping us as teachers.
Mm.
And she also calls like what we call telepathy as eavesdropping.
Right.
You're eavesdropping.
Hmm.
And she calls us eavesdroppers. Like if you're doing it, you're eavesdropping, or she's eavesdropping. Um, you've heard of the hill, right? From
Yeah.
telepathy
Yeah.
tape.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So
Okay.
there's a teacher there, or there's multiple teachers sometimes, and she's often on that hill. And I believe she seems to be one of the much more prominent kids that is working there and that's doing stuff. And she's doing all sorts of stuff to try to help and move things forward. And somehow this whole what we're doing, the trainings that we're doing is a piece of the puzzle to being able to make progress.
Hmm. Yeah. And I guess that progress and moving forward is in Thomas Campbell's kind of framework. He basically reducing entropy. Is that the right term?
Yeah, reducing
Basically,
entropy. Yeah.
like he basically through his theory of everything, he kind of claims or states that there is a loving force guiding us, and love actually is the answer because things are in much more harmony, and that's basically why the entire simulation exists to begin with, is to organize and make things less chaotic, and all the information is slowly moving away from chaos into order. And there's plenty of science about what love is doing to us chemically and neurologically and everything. And people who are in love states, it's harmonious. I am much more of the belief that I don't think nihilistically anymore, or everything is just rocks smashing into rocks in outer space. I think love is kind of, as cheesy as it sounds, the purpose of all of this. So what is the these teachers moving things forward? Is it just toward a more loving, harmonious world? Is the idea to kind of usher along the next step of evolution? Any insight to what the teachers are moving us toward? Why is it important that we all uncover these abilities within ourselves?
If I was to take a guess, and because I can only guess, I would assume it's something along those lines. It's the idea that I mentioned earlier about telepathy bringing more connection, understanding, love, and I think, yeah, you're on the money. It's love, right? If you have, for example, an individual, they're acting in one way. If you put another individual next to them, they're not really organized. They're doing their own thing. If they love each other, they're going to be much more in sync. They're going to be acting organized, and there's this love in between them. If you put a third individual, more love, then they will be acting as a system together. If you increase this into a community that loves each other, everybody really truly loves each other and is connected, there's going to be very little entropy in that system. And with telepathy, you get that. And imagine you bring this on a country level, on a worldwide level, where we all love each other and we're taking decisions and taking actions that are in the best interest of our neighbors and of people around the world, across the world from us, halfway around the world from us. That will be a much more harmonious way of being, and a much more, in quotations, organized way of being. Organized in the sense of we're in sync with each other. So if I was to take a guess, yes, I think the teachers are pushing us more towards something like that. But I want to put a big but here. I think it's really important, and this is a lesson that I think Lidu has intentionally or unintentionally taught me. Discernment is extremely important, and sovereignty and discernment. I think we're going to get into an interesting period of time where a lot of people who are looking for answers and looking for purpose and looking for meaning, they're going to give their sovereignty and their power and authority to other people. Maybe kids that are telepathic, maybe people that claim that they can channel these kids, or that they can channel higher beings, or they can channel God or the source. I think it's extremely important to keep sovereignty within each of us and keep the authority within each of us, and not give your authority or power away, because that's a very dangerous and slippery slope. We're not looking to create guruships or create power structures around people, around certain individuals. We're looking for everyone to find their own truth. What Tom Campbell says, not your experience, not your truth. That's really important. Has to be your experience, so that it's your truth, and you do what you believe is right, not outsourcing your power and sovereignty to someone else.
Well, I think that's like so important, like especially that word discernment, because I think it's so easy to be skeptical about this stuff because there's a lot of people that lead us astray, and sometimes what people will say, follow your intuition and really get in tune with your intuitive side. Some people follow their intuition very closely and they end up in a cult, or they end up falling for a false prophet, or they end up believing some really wacky stuff that ends up wasting a lot of their time and actually harming them in the long run, because they feel, well, first of all, they feel really stupid or gullible. Second, I don't know, they lose faith in their own ability to discern things. So it is a bit of a tricky one. I find that's why I'm so interested in trying to have my own experience or something. I feel that I'm becoming much more open to this stuff as life has gone on because I've been so interested in it. There have been certain experiences that have given me enough pause to keep going. I've had some really interesting experiences and kind of very strange experiences on psychedelics, for example. By being really interested in the UFO subject, I ended up seeing something in the sky about a year ago with a buddy of mine. But I also noticed to myself, I was so keen to believe that I also would get a bit carried away, and I've had the tendency to get carried away with certain ideas. And I think even the UFO one, you can get a bit lost in the weeds sometimes, So yeah, it's a tricky one to navigate, and I think if there is ways people can actually have their own experiences with this kind of stuff, I think that is first and foremost what people should be really encouraging, at least, not just believe me, trust yourself. Here's some tools to work with. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that I would love to explore further. I think once I have some kind of personal confirmation, it would just be the beginning of just go for me.
I think with the UFO thing, I was really not into that world until recently. In a very short space of time, a lot of things have opened up. And what I'd say is I can't go into details about it, but I would invite everyone and yourself um, to be quite open-minded about what's actually real with that. Because I have on pretty good first-hand experiences and from people that I really trust from their first-hand experiences about some crazy things. Um, so I think it's that world is much more. There's a lot more going on than I could have ever believed or thought possible before getting into it.
You said you can't say much. Is there anything you can expand on regarding that?
Uh, no, it doesn't matter anyway because it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy for anybody that hasn't had experiences. So it doesn't. It wouldn't matter, Like I can talk about all the size stuff because I can demonstrate, well, kind of demonstrate something. Uh, but anybody that wants to come to the training, like they can all experience it themselves. If somebody wasn't going to get any experiences,
People wouldn't turn
they
up.
could have a full refund on it. I wouldn't care. But that's stuff that I can easily, demonstrate or prove to people, or they can have their own experience. I can facilitate that experience. With the UFO stuff, it's all like, it's I'm not at a point where I can reproduce something for people. Although, that being said, there are people that use telekinetics, psychics, to call down crafts.
Right.
So that's a thing. Apparently, there's a public organization now. What is it called? Skywatcher. They do that. There's other ones that do that. So I do have it in my mind that maybe one of these trainings we might go out a few times at night, and with everybody has, when they have the skill, maybe we'll try to call down a UFO. So maybe that'll be a thing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, there are people like, is it Dr. Stephen Greer, I think.
Yeah.
That's his whole thing. And people that we've mentioned earlier. God, I hope we get some answers in our lifetime. I mean, seems like it's moving that way, but who knows? I don't know. I just don't really trust the powers that be to give us an honest disclosure or anymore. So anyway, yeah, it's personal experience is what I'm after. So how do you guys where do you guys operate out of? And do your courses travel around the world at all? What tell us about the actual classes and courses and how people could get involved in that if they were curious.
Yeah, so we're kind of doing them on a rolling basis almost at the moment. Last one was in Ogden, next one is in Sedona, Sedona, Arizona. And we don't have a specific place. It's kind of, we've really only just started, but we're having a lot of people reach out to us. So we have somebody in North Carolina that wants us to do one over there. We have another person that might that wants us to do one in Salt Lake City, somebody in California. Um, there might be one in Australia as well. By the way, we're in talks with someone.
Great.
Bali, Italy. So kind of just depends. Um,
That's pretty great that you're moving around. I love that. That's awesome.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Is there anything that people at home listening to this, obviously you've put together courses and there's training things. Is there anything that you think people could play around with themselves simply, or is it a little bit more complex than that?
Yeah, it's super simple, super easy. I like telekinesis because you can get a result in immediately. And like don't listen. My recommendation is this: do not look into it. Do not look into it, information that people put out on it. It's so many people are instilling limiting beliefs and constraints. I really recommend you don't look too much into it. Spend very little time reading or researching about it online. Just follow your own path and your own development. And it's super simple. Learn how to make a psi whale. It's basically you take a needle, a pin, stick that in a piece of eraser or something to keep it upright, and then put like a little square tin foil or something on top to balance on top so that there's the smallest amount of friction on it. And then just try to move it and don't use any sort of frameworks. Try to move it however makes sense to you. And um and just do it. And that's how I started everybody off. And they do it. And everybody does it. And it's easy. And everybody can do it. And um, once you get good at it, progress, use paper, use cardboard, and then start moving things on other surfaces. And, there's a few, my Instagram account, I try to like, I, I try for it to be helpful. There's other accounts that are useful as well. Just my recommendation is be really, really, really careful about what sort of information you take in,
Hmm.
what sort of inputs you take in about psychic abilities, because I've experimented a lot. I've worked with a lot of people. I don't think there's any limits. And a lot of people that have written books on this kind of stuff or have trainings on this kind of stuff, they are not helping. They're actually just setting constraints and limits.
Hmm. What's the craziest thing that you guys have experimented with or found results? What's the craziest, weirdest? You mentioned teleportation at the start.
Teleportation, mate. The teleportation, I couldn't even believe that was
Just
real.
yeah, just now that we're nice and primed with this conversation, before I let you go, tell me about that. Tell me what happened, and yeah, tell me about that.
This is something that I wasn't sure if it was possible. But I trained with these Russians, and I was training with them for mindsight, for blindsight, to be able to see with my eyes closed. And they actually also train people to do teleportation with pennies as well. And that's where I got the idea. And it was like, I think it was the last day or the second last day of the training on the telekinesis portion. I'm like, hey guys, all right, let's try something. And I was at the front of the room. I had 100 pennies in a cup. um, I got everybody into like a nice, deep, like relaxed state, like good trancy state, and I facilitated this teleportation. So I had everybody imagine, actually not imagine. First they practiced. They walked up and got pennies out of the cup that was at the front of the room where I was, and they did this two, three times to really get that kinesthetic feeling.
Just
So that
imagining. Did you say?
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So they would do it like
Hmm.
physically, and then they would repeat it in their mind and get all the feelings and everything. And then I would, okay, now you're gonna do it really quickly, and they would practice doing it faster and faster and faster. And then I would like count down three, two, one, and hit a gong. And when they hit the gong, they had to do it with their energetic body, I said. I don't think it matters because, again, these frameworks don't matter, but it's just something for the conscious mind to latch onto.
Mm-hmm.
They would go and get it. And the first time, we did it 3 times before anybody checked to see if they had any pennies in their pocket. And the first time, one gentleman got it. I think it was Jeff got it the first time, and I think Jeff's 50 or 60 or something. He was the first one that got it. The second time, I believe we did it again. We repeated the whole process. Nikki got it, one of the other people, and then I think we did it again, and nobody got it. Anyway, we stopped. We continued on. Went to lunch. Came back from lunch, and we're about to start with something. And that's when I had the idea. Hold on. Sometimes these things work best when like nobody's expecting it and you're just going for it. Like same with the psi whale. If like
Mm.
if there's all this like built up stuff like we're gonna do something, people get in their head. And like, all right, we're gonna do it again, same thing, really quickly. Three, two, one. I hit the gong, and then 2 people got it that time. Um, so yeah, it was crazy. I think it happened to me as well afterwards. After the training happened, we were driving around in Sedona. We came back. Um, yeah, I ended up with some pennies in my pockets, and I don't carry any cash.
Mm.
And one time a penny fell on the floor, like out of nowhere. Anyway, I don't know. That's less clear for sure. But I wouldn't have pennies in my pockets.
Mm. Was anyone ever able to see something actually disappear?
No, no, we didn't have that. No.
Mm.
So um, next training, we're gonna make teleportation more of a thing. We're gonna start with that or something similar, and then we're gonna try something with maybe something that can be maybe caught on camera more easily or like really clear, like maybe from one cup to another cup in front of somebody.
Mm.
So something like that. The Because again, it works with belief systems. You want to make it as easy to believe for someone that it's possible. So going based on that, like what I know about, psychology and stuff, imagine how easy is it for you to believe that in your cup, a penny can just appear. That's pretty out there.
Yeah.
But maybe for a penny to appear in your pocket, for some reason, that's like there's a little bit of uncertainty there. Maybe I had some coins there before. Everybody checked beforehand.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But it
Yeah.
creates a little bit of uncertainty, and you need that wiggle room for that allows the mind to like just make it happen.
Yeah, Thomas Campbell talks about manifesting and things, and he was framing it about it being kind of like a game of probability. You can change the probability of something. It doesn't mean you always can change something. The results. He was saying like healing people. For example, maybe someone's got a 25% chance of survival, and you could, through manifesting and intention setting, you could actually change that to 50%. And they may make it or they may not, but you've changed the probability. That's kind of how he's framing it. Maybe I'm not using the best kind of example, but I'm just relating that to what you're saying. I could see that the changing the probability of something appearing in your pocket could, because again, there's reasonable doubt. Well, maybe I had a
Yeah,
a
yeah.
penny or something, but like, so in that framework,
And it's
I
the
kind of,
ability of your consciousness
mm, mm,
observing that and expecting that. So it's not the probability of it being able to happen. Because in the healing example, for example, if along comes some famous healer, and let's say you're of Christian faith, so it's like, it's a Christian healer, it's a faith healer, and he's really well known, extremely well known, and he comes to you in the hospital and then he does something, then that's that goes not from 25 to 50, probably goes from 25 to 90%
mm,
because you really expect that to happen. And that's why next time we're going to do the teleportation exercise, there's going to be more people that are going to be able to do it because me, Dahlia, the other facilitators, any alumni that are going to be on that, they're all going to be like, I know this is possible now. I didn't think it was possible,
mm.
but I had to have some conviction to do it so some people would believe it. And it worked kind of. And that's why this stuff gets even easier and easier as more people do it, because it's like the probability is in your own consciousness, is what you expect reality to give you.
Yeah. I tell you, those are electric sparks those videos of you getting electric sparks, touching metal objects, and even touching people. That stuff's pretty weird, man. it's,
Yeah.
it's pretty wild. Like, static electricity usually will do a once off. Maybe you get another one tomorrow, kind of thing. But you went zip 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 zip. It was pretty weird videos. That's the
Yeah.
thing. I mean,
And
like the teleportation stuff. I would usually just be like, oh, okay. But I mean, you've got some videos that are pretty interesting. Yeah, worth exploring.
yeah.
How do people find you? How do people kind of get on board or start their journey into this kind of stuff? What's the best way to connect or get into the training?
For the training, you can go on the website. It's something like www.extra-ordinaries.com. And we have the next training there. Can read up about stuff there, what we've done. Check out the Instagram though. It's good to see stuff. So check out the Instagram, watch the videos and see stuff so that you're like destroying any limiting beliefs about it.
Is your
That is
Instagram page probably you happy to
Yeah,
share
it's
that
it's
or?
mine, but it's like it's not personal content. It's always
Yep.
stuff from the training.
And what's the
Um,
Instagram handle?
Alex.iamxo.
Yeah, there's some pretty interesting videos on there. So give Alex a follow there. Alex, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. Really fascinating conversation. Challenge some ideas are very challenging, but like open, I encourage opening our minds and exploring possibilities. I've said a few times, like sometimes you got to believe in a bit of magic for any kind of magic to happen in your life, and which I really believe. So thank you. You live a very interesting life, and yeah, I really look forward to kind of watching where this all goes. I think if more and more people are demonstrating these things and documenting them, and I think that will change people's minds. I'm really looking forward to the Telepathy Tapes documentary coming out. I think the second season of Telepathy Tapes, which is not related to you guys, but really does a great job of kind of outlining this different model of reality and exploring a lot of these subjects. It's really, really fascinating stuff. So yeah, thanks for everything you do. Really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Jack. This was really, really a fun conversation, and it was interesting for me as well. Thank you.
Yeah, nice one. Cool. Thanks for listening, everyone, and have a wonderful day. See you later.